Hi, Phil.
Hello, Sandy.
So,
I get a little worried when you say it like that, though. Hi, Phil. Okay.
good morning, Valentine.
Well,
Is
Valentine.
it still morning anymore?
Nobody calls me Valentine.
I call you Valentine.
Do you?
You see, you just don't listen to me anymore. But what you need when you want to be listened to is somebody with a therapy background. They're really good listeners.
Yeah.
And our guest today gave me quite the experience at the Multiple Pathways of Recovery Colorado conference. I ended up being unpacked in a group of people during art therapy over my snake phobia.
She unpacked you about
She
that?
unpacked me.
Did she ask you a question?
Yeah, she asked me questions and the
Like what
group
kind of
weighed in,
question?
and I don't know, we'll have to ask her. I can't remember them now. I just remember it was
Did it help?
um I I watched a video the other day of rattlesnakes that were hiding under somebody's outdoor chair cover. So
Oh, I don't know if I'd even watch that.
I'm making some
And
progress.
what was your reaction to that?
I was doing fine until they cut away to another picture where somebody's insulation was wrapped around a pipe and they
No.
were moving that, and instead of
No.
3 rattlesnakes there was like
This is exposure therapy.
500. It was referred to as
Five.
a nest of rattlesnakes
No,
under
that's
this huge
terrifying.
so that I had to turn off.
Well, I'm not even
The
afraid of
minute they
snakes, really, but that kind of thing. I remember I was on the Appalachian Trail, and this guy told me he used to replace insulation as his job, and he crawled into this space, and he couldn't move, and he pulled the insulation down, and two snakes landed on his
yeah.
chest. They weren't poisonous, but just that alone was like enough. I felt my heart almost
So anyway, these are some
constrict.
of the things art therapy can do, but we should probably learn more about how
No,
this
but
all
so was this before or after
got.
you went on your little hike to the
It was after.
after? But you
Yes,
did
and
the
I
hike
was
after seeing the rattlesnake sign.
I did, but I still had trouble with the rubber snakes being used as part of our art therapy class.
Did you ever see the prank where they like tie a fake snake to somebody and they go,
Yes.
hey, and they start run away and the snake follows them?
Well, and if you remember, I was trying
Did
to
you
show
think that's
progress by buying a toy snake for our grandson,
yeah, and he
who's 4, which I presented with him last weekend. And he decided it would be funny because I did the little scare reaction. It's turquoise with like blinged
it's a
out,
pretty
right?
snake.
It's a pretty snake. Well,
That
he
helps
thought
this
my
story.
reactions were so funny. He locked me in the bathroom without windows with him and turned off the lights and kept putting the
Too
snake
soon.
on me. He's
It was too
4.
soon.
He's 4. I was
Yeah.
like, okay. Yeah. So hi, Lisa.
Hey,
How are you?
okay.
Good.
Yeah, I feel like the snake story is definitely, you seem like you didn't hear it.
No, I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that part.
Ah,
I don't.
yeah.
You know, a lot of people assume that we talk more than we do.
We've got our relationship has evolved to the point where we don't really need to actually talk.
We do the Wordle together.
Well, except for last night.
Last night I accidentally
Did it
I
without?
And then
texted him the solved puzzle.
and
That's like watching a season, like an episode without
He
yeah,
did it to
someone.
me 2 weeks ago, but I didn't do it on purpose.
2
I
weeks
thought
ago.
that he had done it already, and I got it in 2, so I was showing off.
So
Yeah.
it's even.
Or 3.
Oh, I don't know. It's all good. Um, so who are you?
Where am I?
Yeah, who
Where are
are
you?
Who
you?
am I? Still trying to answer that. Every
Yeah.
time I answer that, I have to re-answer it again and again and again.
So who are you? You're gonna say hello to everybody?
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, yeah, everyone.
Everyone.
There's just Don over here.
Who am I? Who am I today?
Yeah,
I'm the guest today.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you're Lisa.
Yes.
Hope.
Lisa Hope.
Lisa Hope. What a great name.
Yes.
And how would you describe your current role? What is it you do?
I stopped trying to describe it, but I guess the best way to describe it is a little bit of therapy, a little bit of teaching, a little bit of coaching, mothering, you know.
hmm
It changes every day, but little pieces of that is sprinkled.
All right. And we know you, well, I know you because we've trained the Recovery Coach Academy together. You've been through the Recovery Coach Academy, you've trained it many times. Um, we also have you come to multiple Pathways of Recovery conference and do your art therapy thing, which is
Mhm.
always a lot of fun.
I've experienced twice now. I
Which one
liked
did
the
you do?
first time better.
Yeah, which one
The
did you do this
Sous
time?
vide.
The
This
first
time was
This time was sand tray.
I don't even know what that is. Oh, a sand
Well,
tray.
it's almost like,
It's
wow,
not
the
like
art
some,
therapy world would hate if I explained it like
oh,
this, and all the other sand tray therapists.
so
So
maybe it made or not.
we'll put a trigger warning
I
on
can
this
make
episode.
I can make it as casual as possible, but you make an image in the sand, and it has a really deep background in like analytic theory and dreams and symbols and water, and it's like a whole thing.
Hmm.
And that was where a lot of the objects that can be put in that landscape can be really frightening to people. And I purposely didn't censor them, which I told Sandy.
And so then
So
what do
they're
you
like
do
little
after you do
rubber
that?
toys like we had for the kids, and you had to go up and pick a certain number of objects.
Yeah.
And I literally couldn't look at the snakes on the tray. So when I went back to my seat, somebody that is a colleague of mine in Connecticut comes back, absolutely adores snakes. She picked all the
Every
snakes.
snake.
Yeah.
There
Every
were so
one
many
there was.
snakes.
The big ones.
Well, like, so, all right. I
You're
don't,
curious. You
yes,
wanna
I
do
haven't
this.
seen
He
it.
wants
So
to
I
do
want,
this so
how big
bad.
is the sand tray?
It's like a lunch tray.
It's like a lunch tray.
I used the lunch tray.
Does
Again,
everybody
my
get their-
apologies to the field.
No, does everybody get a lunch tray?
Yeah.
Everybody
And you
did.
get that kinetic sand, like we used to have.
Kinetic sand.
Is it called something different?
Okay.
And it's like
It doesn't get
clean
messy.
for
It's not
COVID
like-
purposes.
It's not like kitty litter.
No, it is
Okay.
not kitty litter. It's a good question. It was fair. And the tray has to be blue, and
Okay.
that can be water typically, or the sky,
And
depending
what
on.
color is the sand?
I brought 3 different colors, right?
I
brought-
chose sand colored, but you could get black, and I think it was just black or
And then you take an object and just place it on the tray
multiple objects. So
and
like,
place it and arrange them on the tray.
yeah, so mine was a beautiful ocean picture with a starfish and a
How
dolphin.
peaceful.
And my neighbor's
So sandy.
was a desert filled with snakes.
I find it interesting that Sandy was doing a sand tray.
Yes.
Yeah, it
Mhm.
was all about me, Phil. Not to mention the other 25 people in the room.
So we have to continue this conversation because this is not where, well, not that we had any real intention. So the neighbor came and she had, and you say a big snake, like what's a big
She
snake?
brought like five
Lots of snakes.
snakes.
And they're really realistic. Like I
Like the-
stir the pot intentionally.
Yes.
So they're
hands-on style.
scary.
I love
They're
that.
really like
I love
the
that.
cobra sits up like this high. It's
Really?
not like
No.
little, and they're really detailed, and I
So-
think she got every single big one.
And her name, you've met her, Lisa Arnold. She wouldn't mind me sharing that. She works in collegiate recovery.
Oh yeah.
So, like, she and I are, we were acquainted, but I could no longer look at her. I literally was combing my hair over my
Did you
left
notice all
eye.
that? Was it
No.
going on? Oh, you didn't
No.
notice that?
No, but I allowed myself to be used as a
How
as
big
a
was
did.
use case.
You did.
How many were in your class this time?
That was
25. It was
yeah.
full.
wow.
I ran out of trays.
Yeah, good. That
Yeah.
tends to happen a lot when you do your thing there.
Or 2.
Yeah, right.
2 or 50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But it was an incredible experience. Back to how art therapy can help you in recovery. Because I was hearing the other Lisa's whole experience of snakes and what she liked about them and all of that. And I was dealing with my own emotions and trying to forge through it and saying, it's just a rubber
Mhm.
toy snake. So, it brought up feelings.
Mhm.
And I asked you if you wanted to leave at some point and
Yeah.
how you stayed.
Yeah,
It's
I
really
stayed by
less
just-
about the art.
Well, and this is when I go for a walk in the woods. I
Mhm.
send the whole family ahead of me in the hopes that if there's something to be seen, they'll see it and I go in the other direction. And so I just physically turned away from
Mhm.
having to see it.
And there's also a part of that that if you're going to be afraid of something,
Mhm.
the best person with you is the one who's not,
Right,
right?
right.
Like that, it's the snake charmer. That's
Mhm.
what I said to her. I was like, well, that's the perfect person
Yeah,
to be there
she
when
wasn't
you're scared.
she wasn't feeding into my anxiety at all.
Right.
She was telling me her perspective of why she finds those creatures fascinating.
Were you buying it?
No.
Why does she find those creatures fascinating?
Everything that I hate about it, she loves
Yeah.
about it.
The
Like
fact they have no legs
their
and
their
they
move,
do
yeah,
the
their
way they
ability to
move.
coil and move, and the
Mhm.
grace in
Sneak
which
up
they
on you.
do, and all the things. Yeah.
Wow.
So, so that's a little bit about what you do in addition to
Yeah.
facilitating the Recovery Coach Academy.
So, from your perspective, what's the point of doing that
That
exercise?
that that art experiential I picked for the topic, which was adult children of alcoholics. So that's kind of a big part of my preferred framework
Hmm.
for my own healing.
Hmm.
So when I pick the topic and I'm like, adult children of alcoholics, what do we need to learn? Or what is the goal? And a lot of it is play, but on the opposite side of that is fear, right? Like to be
Hmm.
comfortable and safe enough to play.
Yeah.
And at a conference
Hmm.
with people, who might have this professional shared experience with you, and how much are you going to let yourself play in the inner child. So we were doing some techniques to kind of like elicit the inner child, for people who don't have it at the forefront,
Mm-hmm.
like you or myself.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, you think I have my inner child? Is
I
that
could feel it.
Oh my
I
gosh.
could feel it.
You should have brought your magic book in and
I
let
think
Lisa unpack some of
well,
your
she's seen that.
recent drawings.
Your doodles.
Yeah.
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 Doodles.
Whatever
They're
they are.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how did you get to this place in your life where this is the tapestry of your days
Oh,
changing?
well, there's a big question, right? How did you get to this point in
Who
your
are you?
life?
So Phil
How did
usually
you
starts
get
with,
here?
tell us about little Lisa, or
I don't know anything about little Lisa.
yeah, what was life growing up like?
I,
Earliest childhood memory? Do you even
earliest
remember?
memories, holidays. My brothers. I have twin brothers who are 3 years younger than me. They were a big part of my childhood.
Oh, wow.
Were they well received by you?
Yeah, yeah. I immediately took this like mothering role, whether I had to do it or not.
Mhm.
And there was two of them at the same time, so my mom was very like happy to have the help.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the helper like came from in me.
Mhm.
Like I just naturally wanted to help, like, or share the responsibility. So I have a lot of memories around my brothers.
Hmm.
Um,
And what were you, and so you were a helper even as a child?
yes, it was a
Yeah.
huge. As long as I can remember, it was a huge part of my identity.
And what did you love to do growing up?
Uh, Let me think. Imaginative, like play. I like dolls, and same thing, like taking care of everything. I also liked, let me see, what was I really into? I like being outside. And I think it was a different experience because we would just like be outside by ourselves. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if like, I think my mom was there, but I remember a lot of freedom and just
We were
like,
never.
Yeah.
just
We have the same
wandering.
experience, but there's some decades between us, so it's
Well, we just also had the parents that say, "Get out of the house."
Yeah,
Go
go
kick you out. We
outside.
didn't even care where we went
Go
or how we did
outside.
it.
now it's I'm gonna turn the
I'm,
Wi-Fi off if you don't get off that screen.
I'm riding my bike somewhere. Go ahead.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
Now it's
Where'd you
play
grow up?
dates and organized.
I grew up in Long Island.
Okay.
Yeah,
Did you say in Long Island
in Long Island,
or
on Long Island,
on Long Island? Which one did you say?
in Long Island. Is that what I said?
I don't
Probably.
know. In Long, but that's interesting
Yeah.
because you're on an island. You're not
Yes.
in an island. But never mind.
No, I mean it's a fair
But
point.
considering a community, you don't say I grew up on Manchester. You say I grew up in Manchester.
Right. I got it. But if I lived it, never mind.
I don't think you have the same accent either, though. When I say like on.
On.
Yeah, exactly.
On.
On Long Island, it all becomes like, oh yeah, we
Can
could
you
tell.
imagine the two of us training a Recovery Coach Academy together?
Yes.
You can.
Do people leave with a certificate?
Yeah, they
Yeah,
do.
they do. But
Eventually, we
I
get
think
there.
they're kind of like, "Whoa, what's going on?"
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's okay. I'm familiar with this behavior.
it's quite fun.
Yeah, it is. It's very refreshing.
So you grew up on Long Island,
Yes.
in a
She
town
brings us back.
on Long Island,
Who's in charge? Sandy.
Yeah.
and just the two twin brothers, or did you have
Mhm.
other siblings?
Mhm.
And so, what was life like growing up?
I have this childhood experience, and then I have like part of my identity and story was that like around 11, I went to an all girls Catholic school. And my brothers went to public school. And this was like the beginning of my plight of injustice. Because I really did not want to go to Catholic school or all girls Catholic school.
What? So why were you sent there?
We still don't know. It's an unknown story. It's changed over the years too. I feel like
And you've asked your parents.
yes,
And their story changes.
changes.
They did
Changes.
not.
Sometimes they decline. No comment.
Really?
And I would like leading up to it, I was like, why? And like religion and spirituality is important to me. I used to sleep with a rosary under my pillow. My recovery hero is my Nana, who's very religious and taught me how to pray. And but I was like, I don't need to go to Catholic school. I was very confused. I remember being like very confused about it. And it was, we thought we were doing the right thing. And then I like poke holes in that. Like, so then why didn't my brothers go? And like, I hate uniforms. And like, this is everything that I wasn't, like the conformist, wear the same outfit every day. And it has to be a certain way. So spoiler alert, I was always in trouble. Because it was like, it was just a setup for me in terms of like,
Wow.
not just like not following rules, but the standardized look and style, and I hated it.
Trying to make it your own.
I hated it. I begged my way
Was this
from
high school or
it
middle
started
school?
7th and 8th grade
7th
was
and 8th grade.
all girls
Yeah.
and a wool itchy maroon sweater. And I do not own anything maroon to this day. The color
No
does
kidding.
not. As an art therapist who appreciates the value of all different colors and palette and
Except
everything,
maroon.
it's not in my closet.
You don't even listen to Maroon 5.
It just, nope, bye. I was able to like claw my way out of that school and go to a co-ed Catholic high school. Whoa.
Yeah.
That was from 7th and 8th, all girls, and then high school was still Catholic school co-ed.
Still maroon in uniforms?
No, I went to Navy, which I still like.
Would your parents say that you were, like this kind of, you're very artsy, you're like a modern day hippie in a lot of ways, kind of just like, would your parents say you were that way as a kid and all that? And they knew that you like to, you're very outspoken, very, you always seemed, you even said you were a little nervous beforehand. I very rarely have ever seen you nervous. Seem to be very confident, very self-aware, which I would attribute as a very appealing quality, that people who are really self-aware know what they're about. Like I remember you doing, last time we were at the MPRC, you did this henna thing. And it came out terrible, and you're like, yeah, sometimes it does.
Yeah.
You didn't.
And I crossed over, and I knew I was doing it.
Yeah.
Every artist has that moment where it's like, stop.
Yeah.
It's good enough.
Yeah.
And that's the metaphor of art therapy, right? It's like, it's good enough.
Yeah.
And to know and respect it and be like, but I just want to push it. Maybe it could be a little bit, and then
You're
it
experimenting
transformed.
too.
Right, and it also transformed into something, which is why I love art, because then
Yeah.
it took over.
I just want to give you some props. I don't think your intention was that he would take that armful of henna
No.
and shove it in a sleeve.
No, yeah, so part of that's mine too. So I own that.
That was not helpful to the process.
That didn't matter. It's just henna,
Just henna.
right?
There was a moment though that we were both looking at it, and I knew it was
It's gonna be okay.
there was a good rest
Yeah.
in what I was doing, and I just kept going, and then it just,
It's all right.
yeah, exactly.
We do that.
It is all right.
So let's go back to Lisa.
No, we are. So I'm just surprised that I was thinking about my role as a dad. Like we have a Mary, right, who's also very, huh?
Just
No, we have a Mary.
We have a Mary.
But Mary, she is very artistic, individualist, and she doesn't even know how gifted she is. She
No.
doesn't recognize her
No.
ability in the art world and how smart and intelligent and bright she is. I can't imagine. Can you imagine us sending her to like an all Catholic girls' middle school where she wore maroon sweaters? Oh my gosh.
She did have to wear a uniform in middle school, but she was able to flare up her
Oh
style.
yeah, they did have a uniform. What
It
was
was
it?
just golf shirts and
Oh,
khaki
okay.
pants.
Yeah.
And
Do
she
they
could.
still do milling? Do they still?
I don't think so.
Is that the daughter you showed me with the makeup?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
like we also had to wear only neutral makeup, one earring, and it couldn't be big. So like if she had an
One
opportunity,
earring?
yeah, just one.
in each.
Like
Oh,
what? Like
oh,
yeah,
that's-
You couldn't have
sorry.
two.
Let me clarify.
There's one
I have like
iron.
6. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
One.
Yeah.
Very conventional.
Mhm.
But yeah, exactly. Like if you find a way to be creative, but
Well, she came home just recently with what? Pink on one side, orange on the other.
Yeah, she
in
dyed her hair pink
and then
here,
half
pink
an
here, and
eyebrow
then
pink.
half
Yes.
an eyebrow of each
Yeah.
color.
that's
Like you and your
yes.
wings. You
Yep.
had your wings.
Yep,
Yeah,
that
actually, your
would be-
wings are a little down this
I
time.
kept them.
You kept
I
them
reined
for.
them in a little bit.
Yeah, did you?
Yeah.
What?
I'm just amazed you even acknowledge makeup.
Oh
Know
yeah.
what
Well,
that
they're
is?
usually.
Oh, okay.
Oh, could we
You-
talk
you
about it
can't
when we were
not.
choosing the Recovery Coach Academy? I was like, wow, look at those
Yeah.
wings.
Yeah.
They're cool.
They're like war paint. They just keep getting. And if I make a mistake, I got to commit to it and fix this side. So then they
Like,
just.
keep going, keep going.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
then they become like huge.
So this creative, imaginative, caring young girl gets thrust into this conformist educational
Correct.
system for 6 years. And how did that turn out?
I was in detention a lot. I know the room number 117, baby.
You were in detention.
Yes.
For.
Painting on my uniform shoes, wearing black nail polish. Could have been anything, honestly. But yeah, it did not result in me conforming, if that was the
Mhm.
goal. Yeah, we would write the student handbook, and wherever you violated the thing, you'd write that part, which was the dress code for me.
Oh,
Just
wow.
over and over, just and it didn't really change my relationship with religion or spirituality, which is kind of interesting. I think about that a lot. Like
Yeah.
I never, it's like, and it's my belief system. I never felt that the people were representing that belief.
Mhm.
And I think that also came from my Nana. Like I saw them totally separate, like the way they were enforcing this or whatever was not, it didn't infiltrate my
Yeah.
like spirituality.
Well, they
which I
didn't
really
align for you.
No, not at all.
You're talking about, they're talking something different than what you knew to be true
Mm-hmm.
inside. That's part of being self-aware. So, what happens after high school?
So, yeah, well, in high school is where I found art and art therapy. So that was good. And that carried me through. I knew I wanted to be an art therapist the second that I heard about it. My art teacher in high school was like, well, it was pretty noticeable. Everyone did self-portraits and they made themselves look like, and mine was like crying and it had like words in it. She was like, there's a thing called art therapy. It looks like you're using it, like using art therapeutically. Because I didn't really have a lot of words
Mhm.
Do you
for
still have that?
the portrait.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Of course I do. Yeah,
Do you have a picture of it on your phone?
I might.
I would love to see
Right.
that sometime.
I
But
think I
anyway,
showed it at. I think I showed it at the
conference?
first.
Did you?
Yeah, about like finding your like surrendering your false self,
Mm.
and like I could only put out this pain, but everyone would then ask me to talk about it, and I was like, I thought I just did right there. Says
Right.
everything, you know.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
It just said everything for me.
Mhm.
And then I went to school for art and grad school for art therapy, and I swore I was never going to work in the field of addiction.
Why?
I just felt like it was too personal. I felt like I came from a family that had this story, not a lot of recovery, but a lot of like pain. Um, and I was like, all right, I'll stay away from that. And I think it was, whether it was outwardly said or implied in the profession, it was like, have boundaries, be same as like my experience of Catholic school, like be a robot,
Or,
shake your head, sit
or like
quietly.
any clinician, you
Yeah.
have your boundaries.
Yes,
Right.
don't be human.
Right.
It's actually the Recovery Coach Academy that gave me the permission to be more authentic in my therapy practice, because I was like, I get its intention, but when it becomes a barrier, what do I do with that?
Mhm.
I'm looking uncomfortable. I talk with my hands. You know, I'm like trying, yes, I can understand how you feel. Like, what am I proving?
You took the Recovery Coach Academy with, was it the first time? Was it with Art and I, or yeah?
Hmm.
I don't know if it was your first time because I knew you. I didn't know if you took it again or you just ended up teaching it a lot.
I did. I went straight
Yeah.
into teaching it,
Yeah.
and it's so I'm like so humbled by it, because after that, it opened me up to be more authentic and like safe enough and not like overwhelm people that I was working with, but for them to be like, wow, you're a really loud therapist. No, I've got like sound machines everywhere. It's just like, and like, it's like, yeah, and that's me. And
Oh, those sound machines. Speaking of that, they had some in the room next door. Now that people want to like put these white sound machines outside their door, I'm like, that is so clinical. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. If I see them, I'm going to pour water in them.
Mhm.
And they're like, "You're serious?" I go, "Yeah." I don't want us to turn into that.
Yeah,
But
I got a cool one that has like the nature sounds, and,
well,
like
that's maybe a little better. Not
rainforest.
just like
You
the
can put it.
faint. I
Like,
like the rainforest.
yeah,
To
I'm
be
like,
okay.
which channel do you like? You know?
I like the Birds of North America channel. But anyway, so you're a loud therapist. What did you learn? You said primarily you learned in the Recovery Coach Academy that it was okay to be genuine, to be yourself. But what other takeaways would you say that helped, or have you seen help others?
I think before then, I was not comfortable or didn't feel included in the recovery community.
Hmm.
I had a voice, I had a perspective as a family member, as an ally, and I didn't always want to talk about it. Um, and I think when I was doing the TOT and I started crying because I realized I have a story.
Mhm.
And that's what we do for people. And I had a story as a survivor of a very unhealthy, abusive relationship. So I had stood knowing, I knew what that was, and I didn't know how to bring it to the table,
Mhm.
how to create my art and bring that to the table and stand. I've stood in some of those moments of powerlessness and knowing I was going to die type feeling, and coming back from that, and like it was just like, oh, you don't know what, like a lot of silencing I was experiencing all over the place, and then I was like, wait a minute,
Hmm.
how
Well,
can I transfer that, you know?
yeah. Well, when you were in the class, um, you helped me to see too that I had no idea whether you were in recovery or not, right? I mean, from an addiction, let's say. And you might have said it early on when we introduced ourselves. I have no idea because I don't really pay attention or write any of that down either. But what I realized and really internalized was it doesn't matter as far as the work we do, whether you're in personal recovery or not. I went on to write about that, proclaim that, and I believe that to the depths of my soul, to be a recovery coach, you do not have to have the lived experience of surviving and being in recovery from addiction to be an effective recovery coach. Because you and I connected on that kind of like soul to soul level, mind to mind, understanding that didn't have anything to do with being both being in recovery from an addiction. And then when we trained the Recovery Coach Academy, you said, Phil, I want to do stages of change. I want to try something. And you shared about that experience using the stages of change. And I was weeping because I saw you break through because you shared it then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Are you
And I saw other people in the class
Yes.
that had,
That related,
Yeah.
completely connected with it.
yeah,
Yeah.
Would you mind sharing that?
the part I think there's so much messaging from the just say no and the victim blaming, and when something looks invisible, there's so much stigma, and it's like, well, why don't you just stop? Is what I got. Why didn't you just leave? Just
Right,
leave.
right.
And also that once you have the courage to change that, your life actually gets worse for a while. And people turn around to me, and I was sharing like, well, how come you didn't tell us? And how come, and it just got so much harder. And for so long, actually. So I think people really can connect with like, it's not a choice. Some people have a choice and they have their freedom. And that's what's different about a symptom or being powerless and someone who has not had that. And it has nothing to do with drugs. Like, I think all the time, like, oh, if you're in recovery, does that make you a good recovery coach? No.
Mm-mm.
I think if we say something is true, we say the opposite is true. So it's like, is every artist going to be a great art therapist? No.
Mhm.
And so it's like, how do we start to change the messaging? And what I was trying to do in that story is connect instead of one up, show how,
Yeah.
prove a point. It's just where are those places where we've connect and
You practiced vulnerability.
yes.
You made yourself vulnerable, and you saw the power in being vulnerable. How many people connected?
I will say for me, when I'm connecting the students that I work with to a therapist, I'm not looking for somebody in recovery, but I am looking for somebody who understands recovery. And I've found that is not as common as you would hope in the clinical ranks.
Yeah, we're trained on pathology. We're trained on disorders. And while there is solution-focused therapies, and there are a lot of other methods that are supportive in that coaching way, I think people don't need to know how messed up they are. Like, they live that and they get it. And, it's how do you look at being so hopeless and like live? Like, how do you do that? Like, how do you get through that first loss or whatever? They don't want to know like how bad it was for how long. So it's moved me as a therapist too. And I notice that I spend less time. If I understand the way someone thinks and their belief about the world, then I can be that mirror and really like support that without thinking I know what's right because I have a piece of paper and a lot of student loans.
Yeah.
I know what's
A lot of
right
student
because I studied this in a book. So there's a balance between lived experience and professional knowledge, but definitely don't proclaim to know that for that
Yeah.
person.
Yeah. Yeah, which goes back to the whole methodology in the Recovery Coaching Academy is to treat people,
Hmm.
all people, as a resource.
Hmm.
And one of the big things I had to learn is sometimes they don't know. They don't have any ideas, right? But you still treat them as a resource by asking permission to share a suggestion. Would you
Yeah.
like a
Asking
suggestion?
a question.
And,
Yeah.
and letting people not know. That was the biggest gift that I had. I didn't know, and people were trying to rescue me from not knowing.
Mhm.
So I wasn't getting clarity. It was just, well, if you don't know what to do, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? Why don't you try? And that's bias, right? Because then it's suggestions that person knows instead of like, it's okay to not know.
Mhm.
Why do you have to know that right now?
Mm-hmm.
And that person is able to really learn how to be patient with themselves because you were patient with them,
Mhm.
because someone was. That's really transformative for me. It's just, it's okay to not know.
Yeah.
In your experience of when you were trapped in this abusive relationship, have you ever created any art or anything around that?
I think from a very early age, I was creating art about trauma. And I don't make a lot of art that like people like. I don't know if it's their bias, but yeah, I have. All of my art goes in those kinds of directions. If
Uh-huh.
I just let it guide me, it starts to come out. And I had an image I was trying to paint for a really long time.
Really?
And I wanted the moon to be a moon. And it kept like becoming really dark, like this really ominous, like skull figure. And I kept trying to make it a moon. And the more I did that, the more I was like, stop. You can look at something that scares you. This is coming out. And like that's how it peeks through. It comes to me and I want to change it so bad. And I'm like, okay, let's look at this. So after that relationship, I made a lot of art that was protecting me, scary masks and horns and like trying to protect myself. It took me a long time to even let someone close to me as a friend or anything. I was
I
like,
talked about
get
that.
away from me,
Yeah, you talked about that.
stay away.
Who's the art therapist's art therapist?
Oh wow, I've had a lot of different
Yeah.
leaders and supervisors, and right now, like I think a lot of my biggest mentors have chosen me.
Mm-hmm.
I have like people that I've trained that just decided to be my sponsor. I have like sponsors. Like, good morning, Lisa. I'm like, cool. I've got all sorts of like I have all sorts of like
Uh-huh.
wonderful like guides. I would
Mm-hmm.
call them.
Mm-hmm. Um, uh, and when you talk, are you still creating art?
I don't do it as much.
Yeah.
I don't do it
Well,
as much.
you'll be drawing pictures with your little one in a
Yeah.
while anyway, right? Or you probably already have been.
Yeah, and I think a lot about art and like I think it's like recovery, like it changes. Like the
Yes.
so like I don't do as much visual art. Sometimes I do it with the people I'm working with. Um but I love plants and I love doing it somewhere else. Like I if I step back, I notice I'm making art, even like my makeup or style or
Mm-hmm.
and with my son it's just like so it's so amazing because he's just so free and I get to like play and
Yeah.
make art. So I see it in other ways. I'm always doing it, but not the same way that I did.
My sponsor always, well, he's not always, but I learned very early on, and one of the many times I've met with him, but he said, when you're creating, you're closest to the creator. And I had never made that connection, like the creation of art. And there's a creation has CREAT, and so those letters RAT are in create as well. And I just never really thought about that. So I've always loved to create and to draw and doodle and do all those things. And I think as I'm approaching this phase of my life, that's going to be a big part of it. That there are things that I just want to kind of let just flow of me in a variety of ways. And I've always thought about like, do I pick up acrylics? Do I pick up oils? Do I pick up water paints? Do I have to take a class in order to do it? You know, I'm putting up all these barriers, or is it just I mean, did the greatest artists of all time, did they have training or did they just do it?
It comes,
I don't know.
it's a practice, like you said.
Right. Practice, there's an
Practice.
ART is there
Practice.
practice
Yeah, it's a
too.
practice.
Yeah.
And it's so cool. I took a sculpture class, and I was like, there was like resistance I had to the learning part of it, because I was like, oh, then I got to learn a whole new thing or technique, and where do I start? And the woman was like, does anyone want to learn how to use a arc welder? And I was like, is it dangerous? Yes.
You said,
I was totally into the whole idea of um like the equipment. I had
yeah.
like all that stuff, and I was so into it, and it just like sparked me. Yeah,
That was
I
like a
know.
dad joke.
It did. I know. I've got a lot of those, but it did. It was just like sometimes the medium. It just like it finds you, and
So
you're like,
are you arc welding stuff?
not anymore.
But
Well,
you used to?
my dad got a couple welders set up at his place, so I've been like itching to get there and get into some like sculpture again. I think what I've been doing is kind of going and visiting art as much as I can. I try to stay connected in that way. Um, but yeah, I would love to just get into some sculpture and
I always thought glass blowing would be
yeah.
cool.
See?
I've done glass
cool.
fusion, which is pretty cool, but glass blowing.
Well, our ORCA, our Ocean Recovery Community Alliance, Kevin, he was at an art display in Jamestown. This is not a dad joke, but he because we were picking up all this trash on the beach. We're trying to figure out what to do with it. This guy made this fish out of things that he had found out of trash, and it's incredible. Like it's an incredible art piece. The little price tag underneath it, $29,000, you know, and I think somebody had bought it, you know. I'm like, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
just for things like that. And I hiked a trail with Dr. Pickles, and we went and visited him last year, and he started this studio, and he's always been very meticulous, methodical, and he's on how he sets things up, and he learned under this other artist who passed away, and but now I see some of the art he's creating, and I'm just like, it keeps getting better and better and better. And it's you're a strange lot, or maybe
Mhm.
we're a strange lot, but I think everybody has an artist of some kind in them. It's just the inner critic gets so like, I see it in some of my kids. I can't draw, you know,
Mhm.
I can't do that. I'm not, and I look at the stuff I do or just doodle and go, it's kind of cool, but I don't really have any technique or anything. I'm just letting, and that's what I've tried to talk to the kids. We just say, just let the pen go wherever it wants or whatever, and just draw, you know.
I grew up doing a ton of art, but then, I spent 3 decades hunched over a computer and multiple
Mhm.
hand surgeries, and I just, I can barely do a nice signature anymore. I blame it on all of that, but maybe not. Maybe I need an art therapist. And plus, my husband and all my children, I don't know about Matthew. Sorry, Matthew, but I haven't seen anything
He just has a
ever
different
he
style.
has ever
Yeah.
done, but they're
He just has a
very
different style.
talented.
It's kind of like told to us in society. Like even when I proclaimed that I was going to be an art therapist, I remember like my dad is very neutral, and he was just kind of like social work. You know, like a little, like, you mean, like, no, at that time, it's like, well, if you're not good at it, you have to make money. How are you going to live?
Mhm.
And, like, I live in a one-bedroom, like, apartment with a kid.
Mhm.
Like, but I love what I do.
Mhm.
So it's also, like, taught that if you're good at something and it doesn't make you money,
Mhm.
well, put that aside. And that's putting, like, my soul aside and just like, oh, well, how are you going to live? I don't know. I'll figure it out. How am I going to live, like, doing a profession that I hate for a house that I hate every day
Mhm.
type of thing?
Right.
I feel
He's
understood.
giving,
And there
he's
was a
giving
look.
me the wiggle eye.
I was waiting to see what she might say to that.
Yeah. I mean, it took me over 30 years to get to a place where I feel I'm doing the work that I should be doing. But doesn't mean that there wasn't good in all of that. But realizing that all of that was working for what things looked like rather than, as an example, Phil and I spent 2 weeks in a new little camper that we bought. And I was super content in a space smaller than this studio. Super content. I was like,
And it's on wheels, so you can bring it into lots of different kind of really cool places.
Exactly.
still not ready to live my entire future with 5 outfits, but I'm working towards it.
Yeah.
So I would like to know, with all of that work and the situation you walked out of, what did you learn about yourself?
It took me a long time to learn to trust myself.
Mm.
I had to learn to trust myself when I was going to be alone in that decision.
Mm-hmm.
And I still relearn that one. And what else did I learn?
Which is it's always a both and, because you come across, and you said you're pretty confident and self-aware, and to still have that kind of deep rooted where I don't trust that.
Mhm.
Isn't it weird?
Yeah. Or people can give me a subtle, like, it's like right underneath the surface, like, oh, are you sure? Like, how are you gonna, like, their doubt about it. And I thought for a long time, oh, I can't pick a healthy partner. I'm good at picking friends. I got great friends.
Mm-hmm.
I've got great relationships with work people, but when it comes to love, intimate love, I fail. And I believe that, and I learned that to be true, and I thought that it was going to be true for my whole life. And I'm not saying it's not true right now, but I'm saying it did nothing for me than hold me responsible for somebody else's decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And once I set myself free from that, and I saw people who had accomplished things beyond what they could ever imagine, I was like, there's nothing separate from me and that person.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible for me too. So I also learned inspiration is important.
Phil always says the best is yet to come.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I get in the groove of everything great has been in the past, like all the great moments or the limitations, I have a tendency to be a risk manager. He is a lot of people, well, here's the weird thing. A lot of people would perceive me as being a risk taker, but they're informed risks. He is a risk adventurer, or that's not even the right word, but
What is the right word? You're on an interesting track. Tell me here.
You just go for it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't manage the risk until the thing that goes wrong happens, and then you figure out how to deal with it when it happens. Where I want to prevent
Yes.
those things from happening, and then I'll take, if I know that I can have plan B, plan C in place, then I'll go for A, but I got to have a backup.
Well, I learned a lot of that that I think it's always been partly true, but when I
Yes.
was on the Appalachian Trail, you can't plan for the stuff that happens.
But I
You
also
just
do
can't plan for
feel
it.
that I am often your plan, taking care of plan B for you so that you don't fall too hard.
Like what?
Like what?
Yeah, like what? Go ahead. You have it at
Do
the
it.
tip of your tongue.
Do
Oh,
it.
gosh. There are things that I just take care of that you're probably not even aware. So you don't have to worry about them.
Okay.
Would he worry about him anyway?
No. But if all of a sudden our kid was kicked out of college because the tuition wasn't paid, right?
Yeah.
Like that would be a problem to deal with. So like you don't have to worry about that. And that's not a great example, but I just paid 2 kids tuition this week, so it's on my mind.
No, but that if they got kicked out, we'd have them home and we'd figure that out. I don't know.
That's
I
like
don't
that's
know.
like the faith fear
Right.
fear power. It's like the faith is like, you know that if something happens, like you'll figure, like you'll
Mhm.
get there, and something like that's a lot of faith.
Oh yeah.
And I really still feel like that's the opposite of fear. Not that
Oh.
it's not that it's careless, you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
but it's like it's freeing, and it scares people that are risk managers.
Yeah.
It's scary because it looks careless and it looks irresponsible. And I learned a lot about like love and control, and like what I perceived was loving was controlling, and how those two things, like where is the control,
Wow,
and like
great. Yeah.
keeping control, keeping the order. It's like
Yeah. I mean, I'll use CCAR as an example. Like CCAR's values are to err on the side of generosity.
Mm-hmm.
So they give away a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always like, I worked in a for-profit world for 33 years. Like, what are you out of your freaking mind?
Yeah.
And they just keep growing
Mhm.
and serving and growing and serving more. So all these years of watching him in this role, I've thought countless times, you're out of your mind. That's never going to work. It's too big a risk. You're giving it away. The viability. And it's always just been blessed.
We keep growing. So I have a couple of deep questions
Uh-oh.
because these are big questions that I've been working on lately, and it has to do with the meaning of life and the purpose of life. A lot of times people get the two of those um, interchanged. Um, so I've understood the purpose of my life was to carry the message of recovery. Then I hit the Appalachian Trail, and now it's to coach recovery. That's a purpose of my life, right? To whatever that might be for people. But now I'm really, as I lost both my parents in a few months ago, divorced 40 years, and passed within 48 hours. And by the way, your gift was absolutely beautiful. So thank you for that. I haven't done a good job of responding to that, but I super appreciate that. Um, what is the meaning of life? What is the meaning? I mean, when you sit by your parents and look at your future in the face and saw, their last 5 to 10 years, and they were pretty content, but there was a lot of pain. My mom, especially, she seemed more content with my sister than with me, right? But that's okay too. Um, what is the meaning? I mean, what is the meaning? And I've been wrestling with that, and I'll share what I've come to believe, and it could shift, but I think there's because you were talking a little bit about, working and having the money and doing this so you can pay this and do this. Is that the meaning of life? To work, to make money? And I think you've discarded that notion. That's probably not the meaning of life. Um, but I've come more and more to thinking it's about joy and it's about enjoyment. Because as a dad, I want my kids to enjoy their lives, whatever, however that looks for them. And I think my Heavenly Father or my Creator wants me to enjoy what He's created or achieve, but that's just my belief. I just want to hear your thoughts, purpose and meaning of life, and yours. Who wants to go?
Lisa's up first.
Because these little big, and there's no right answer,
Well,
right? It's
yeah,
just a
but
discussion.
there's also the truth in that it changes. I think
Yes.
that's the most honorable way to start answering that, is that it's if you honor that, you don't get stuck in
Mm-hmm.
sticking to something to finish it because you said you were going to, when your heart is like, leave this.
Yeah.
So then your purpose starts to change, and the
Right.
meaning of it changes, because if you really go with that process, like you already answered your own question, but like you already know that. But
That's why I wanted to just give you an example so I could hear
yeah,
what you're thinking.
but there's also like the idea in an artist, right? And the untitled, or the person that views the as an outsider. When you look at another person and you have your meaning, the impression they've left on you, and what you assume or what you think you can know about their meaning and purpose. And there's always been this dialogue with the artist and people standing in front of it going, my 2-year-old could have done that. Well, that wasn't the point now, was it?
Yeah.
Good for you. They did it though. Or, or they like, I don't like to read the tags.
Yeah.
Because I like to have my own relationship with it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care so much. If it really makes me curious, which is where I always learn, that's my inner child, is I'll go over and I'll want to know, like, what year was that, or what did they decide? But oftentimes untitled, number 4, right? So I am left to make my own
interpretation.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
That's a real. It's such a freedom that I think it's frightening for people, that you have the power and the independence to create that yourself. And that's where I think, really healing someone is to honor that they heal themselves. And you might ask a good question, but they already have it. They already have their purpose and their meaning. That's my first reaction from what you said, but I'm sure it'll come like in the shower. I'll be like, that's what it is.
Yeah. So do you have a purpose though?
It's in each relationship, it's different.
Okay.
And it keeps changing. And I think about, what is my purpose to like my parents as they get older, or my brothers, and as an aunt, and like what does that look like in my family relationship, in my professional relationship? Everyone defines me differently too, as my purpose with them, with my clients or recoveries.
Wow.
The purpose I have for them is completely different if I was to ask them.
Yeah, I would see, and I would see you as, it would be somewhere along the lines of helping or service or something like that. This seems to be your natural role, like you talked about as a kid. What do you think about your purpose?
Well, this is just the way I'm feeling this week, so I agree with you completely. But it was reminded to me by a visit from one of my nieces, who's only 4 years younger than I am, and the conversations we've been able to have with Don Koyas about generational impact, and all the new science coming out about trauma changing DNA, so generation upon generation is impacted. And I do believe that part of my purpose was to raise children without a lot of the generational trauma that came to me. And so, like,
How'd we do?
well, I've been made aware. I've been made aware.
You guys are doing good.
Well, I've been aware.
Doing good.
Our children are becoming adults, and we've given them the opportunity to share where we've gone wrong. Maybe I wasn't ready for that. So I think we're doing okay. But I think I could have done better. knowing what I know today. Sorry. It's just the therapist effect. So anyway,
I sit with that as a mother saying, I don't want to transfer this. And also, I know I'm going to mess up my son to some extent,
Yeah.
but I know the one part that's like the courage to change what I can. I know the one thing that I could do different is that he'll call me and I'll be sober. And that presence, like I'm going to mess him up in other ways,
Yeah.
100%. But I know the part that I changed.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, you are going to mess them up. But when you change the intergenerational story, you've already done so much more. And I just want to offer you that because I sit with that a lot.
Yeah.
Well, we always said too that it's not going to be the big things, that it would be the time that we, I don't know, like tripped over his shoe and
Mhm.
blamed him or something like that.
Yeah.
That ends him up in therapy.
Yeah.
You know, it's
It's
not
always
going to
like
be.
the time you made me eat a carrot.
Yeah. Well, I
I
didn't want to eat
wish.
my carrot.
But
I
that's where the
wish.
big ones we can control.
Well,
The other ones are going to,
we learned early on
they're
where
gonna
we
be
made
best.
Sammy eat her squash because she was being so defiant. So she was in her high chair and she ate a bite of squash and just,
She was older than that.
oh, but
She puked it.
yeah, she threw it back up on the table. Said, "Okay,
We never made any
we're
kid eat
not
it.
gonna do that.
Never mind.
Yeah,
Never mind that.
We're not gonna do that again."
And that's often what we do, like when it doesn't go well.
Yeah.
We learn, like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, sure, okay.
So, is there a meaning of life? Because you've heard me kind of talking about this enjoyment and meaning of life. I mean, it's not just my life, it's the meaning of life. Like for all humans, what is the meaning of life? I mean, it's like the old Monty Python question, but
Well,
it's really a huge, deep question.
circling back to what you were saying, like because God is in my life, so loving God, I'm
Mhm.
called to love God, to connect with God. But I think the that God gives us this opportunity to create, which He created the world. In my belief system, God created the world. So He created the world, and then He gives us this opportunity in so many ways to be a creator. My body created for babies
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and nurtured for babies. Like that is kind of mind blowing.
it is.
But how we create relationships with each other, how we create the community we want around us. Like I think it's an incredible opportunity in life to.
Well, you've created things ever since I've known you. Not just babies and things like that, but think of all your projects at work and what you're doing now. You're a builder. You like to see something and build it
I
and
like to
create
achieve
it.
something.
Well, you're
Which,
you're, hmm?
yeah, I'm not
What-
gonna. And on our recent vacation, I did really nothing for 3 weeks in 3 different locations out in nature. But like, that was the first time that I was self-talking all day, with input from Phil and our daughters. Like, you don't have to do anything. I don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything. I don't have to do anything.
We got
I
up
don't
and
have to
we'd
do
have a
anything.
pot of coffee and sit at our little new kitchen dinette in our trailer and what do you want to do? Nothing. I'm good here. And you're like, really? Can I just sit here? You know, like, yeah,
I had
why
to give myself permission all day, every day.
Yeah.
Take
It's
a
all
lesson
right.
from the dog, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I felt
The dog
restored
just
and
lays down
rejuvenated
and
more. But anyway, that's enough about me. We're here to talk about Lisa Hope.
oh, must be getting close to something. What is it? Is it? Wow, it's gone fast. But what is it you would like people to know? Anything that you're thinking about? CCAR, coaching, therapy,
What's
recovery.
inspiring you today?
Yeah.
I've thought a lot about fulfillment and like joy
Mm-hmm.
and feeling like if you get that far or you make a decision and you don't have joy, what are you doing?
Right.
You know, and no, I'm not saying like ruthlessly at the deficit of others either. But I'm saying like to really connect with that. it's so worth it. There's like that depth of it that, um, like living a life that you don't have to escape from, living a life worth
Mhm.
living. I think about that a lot.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to, I don't want to leave any part of it, even if it's a lot of suffering. I don't want to leave. And that's not something I ever imagined for myself or saw other people do around me. I think we need more role models. And I think like I didn't even know that was possible, that I could sit in my own suffering and still not want to escape. I really didn't even know that I would get to that place. And that's where I feel like just bringing that out and teaching whatever that is for that person, but I think it's something we already have.
Well, my le- you teach best what you most need to learn. Art would have told me that over and over and over again. And I've been doing this past month recovery coach performance support in each of the centers, and the topic has been joy, and getting a lot of input and thoughts about what it means to people. And I don't know that a lot of people think about it even. Think about um, creating is a good word, creating joy in your life. And one of the questions I ask is joy a choice? And
Oh,
is
that's
it?
good.
Yeah.
You just reminded me of I was going out to Long Island
Yeah.
and I was in the car and I am a professional car driver dancer,
Uh-huh.
which I put on this song and I was just
Dance.
at chair dancing like,
Yeah.
and I looked in the mirror and at my son's mirror and he with his little hand.
Yeah.
Aw.
And then
Uh-huh.
the car was driving next to me in the HOV lane and they were,
Yeah.
and I was like, in those moments, if we don't make the choice to not be embarrassed, I think there are those situations where you're like, oh, someone saw me eating my pizza in the car. I was really feeling that pizza, but what are they going to think about my
All
joy?
right.
We learn to even be ashamed of
Of
joy.
joy. Right.
And like how contagious that is. And
Joy
I
is
I really
wow.
recognize that. I recognize I could be ashamed right now. I could feel like seen by these
Mhm.
people. And there was like three people in the car just dancing with us.
There's connection, right?
Right.
Like people are longing for connection. You'll never see them again.
Never.
This moment on the highway, but you created human connection
Well, that
over it.
go that goes to even Old Testament, like they're talking about David dancing unashamedly
Mhm.
before God, and then the people belittling him because he was, So that's an age-old thing to dance like no one's watching, right?
Yeah.
Or dance like you're alone,
Hmm.
or sing like no one's listening. Because I found myself, I remember I was walking on the Appalachian Trail and Jesus Christ Superstar came on and one of my most favorite songs and what's the buzz? And I was doing this side stepping up and down the trail. Nobody's near me. And I was moving around and grooving and clothes and just barely walking. I look up and this girl's going, "Doo, doo, doo," and she's dancing to it. I had the earphones in, so she
There's like
can't hear.
squirrels dancing with
No,
you.
but this
Who
girl
knows?
like sees me and I'm like, I
Yes.
was embarrassed right
Hmm.
away, and she just smiled and shook her head. No, keep going. And she loved it. So it was like, but why is that? Why? And I love what you said about because I was just talking about that yesterday at the volunteer recognition thing, di- celebration that recovery is contagious, right? And a part of recovery is joy.
Mm.
Joy at being delivered from an addiction that was going to kill me. I have the joy of being delivered from a cancer that was going to kill me. Um, that's gratitude and joy, so they're all tied together. And we say we can have an attitude of gratitude, but we can have an attitude of joy too, that we can find that and show that, and I can feel it in people's spirits that are genuinely like enthusiastic and happy. And my sponsor taught me that enthusiasm really means enthusiast with God. They're also tied together. And there are days when I wonder why, or moments when I get dark, depressed, and choose to go into that area, or angry or hurt. And I'm realizing you kind of get the therapist is kind of getting me talking. But Brene Brown's, I read that one little piece. What was that book, Sandy, that you had
Dare
at?
to lead.
She's so cool.
No, the one you had at
Oh,
in
Atlas
the
of the
camp.
Heart.
Yeah, Atlas of the Heart. And I've been running this example by many people, is the fact that it's a journey towards emotional wellness is really about that the journey towards self-awareness. But if you can label your emotion, you start to put your intellect over that emotion. And I've become better and better and better at saying what I'm feeling. And what I discovered in New Haven a couple days ago with doing the joy, because we were talking about this, is that, and this is the one that gets me going, the two most difficult ones for me to say, even though I'm feeling it, is that I'm hurt or I'm afraid. Those are the two at 62 years old. Am I supposed to get hurt? Am I supposed to be afraid of anything? No, I'm tough. I'm strong. I'm a man. You're not supposed to be afraid. You're not supposed to get hurt. You're supposed to shake it off. You're supposed to be tough. Tough guys aren't afraid. Tough guys don't get hurt.
You're not a tough guy.
Oh, I know. Well, that hurts. No, just kidding. But so, and a lot of people are shaking their head going, yeah, yeah. So just those are a couple newer ones of like what feeling, what is that feeling to feel hurt, to feel disappointed, to feel afraid of something. I'm not usually afraid of much, you know that, but there are times where I get, when you think about, I don't know that I'm afraid of dying, but then again, maybe I am since of what happened this year. So maybe I am a little bit now, afraid of missing out, not seeing things. Any thoughts about what I just shared? I mean, you just see, she just did her little recovery coach therapist thing, just with that little smile.
Spinning in my chair.
Yeah.
Just doing the chair spin.
Yeah.
Just doing a little chair spin.
Yeah. Nothing from you guys? Nothing to share?
No, I think that's a great observation you've made. I'm proud of you.
Got any questions for me?
My curious question is where the fear and the pain are guiding you, because I feel like that's the beginning of like, not the why, but what's the lesson, or what is the feedback? And I don't know, you probably already thought about that.
Well, so I think I live in the fear or the pain or being hurt. I'm recognizing now that when somebody says something to me and I get a little quiet or something, or don't respond right away, oftentimes it's I'm hurt, and I'm to the point where I said it's okay for me to be hurt. Yeah, that did hurt a little bit, but doesn't mean I have to respond or react to it. It's just the fact that I know that's what happened is a big, huge step. So um, I think what I want to do down the road is I see myself, if CCAR and the recovery movement is no longer, and it's only a matter of time, right? Really, I'm not going to do this for the rest of my life, but I see myself as and the term Renaissance man comes in, but I don't even know what that means, but I don't know why that came to me. But I'd like to be that guy that's like writing, painting, um, drawing,
Fishing.
reading, fishing, hiking. But that would fill up all my time. You know, I could see so much. Like today, I was thinking about coming here and doing podcasts, and yeah, I didn't really. I'm glad we did because when I'm a little resistant to doing something, that it usually comes out. It's really cool. But I was thinking about, okay, I want to fix that on the camper. I want to get that thing. I want to put, and figuring out how to get all that thing going so it works better because we've had a couple issues, minor stuff, but I want to get all that ironed out and fixed. Um, and I also really am inclined to, I have this thing where I just want to create, I want to draw. I don't know what that is because it's really strong in me right now, but I don't know. So was that what you were thinking?
Yeah.
Or was it like maybe that this insight is leading me to, like you always talk about, like art pours out of you and just kind of comes out and there it is and it is what it is and it was more for me to just kind of put that out there and if you like it, great. If you don't, great. If you get something out of it, okay. It's not really for you. It's just for me to do it.
And I think it's also the process. It's like whenever I show your video and all the different versions over the years about the trail or something, it's the act of being like, you could see it in a person when they are doing their truest self. When they are in that moment, you can almost see it in their face when they're in that.
You can see it.
And I think you can't, it's not a word thing. It's not something that's supposed to be described that way. It's like you talk about the trail, and I think that people connect so much that you were courageous enough to live that and do that and be in that. And like less about like what did you see or what did you learn, but like they just look at you and they know and they connect with that, and that's what they want. That's that spark of like doing what you're called to do.
Yeah, pay attention to what has heart and meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Our Woodard said that all the time, and the heart was HE and then capital ART, right?
Yeah, I still have his card in my office.
Yeah, pay attention to what has heart and meaning, and we've done that with our kids. That they all lit up differently over different things. You know, all five of them, different over different things. And that's what you always look for in your children and in the people you coach, right? That you see them go, that's of real interest to me. Okay, let's pursue what you just said about, doing this. And that's because you saw it light up.
And getting everybody else on board is always my most fiercest advocacy. That's even a word, fiercest, but
well, thank you for your session today.
Thank you.
What are you going to charge me?
Nothing.
For your therapy session? Can I take you out to lunch, maybe?
I don't know.
All right, I don't know. All right.
It's been a pleasure, Lisa. I'm glad I got to know you better. Thank you for...
You have such cool energy. We have to do like a Recovery Coach Academy together soon again.
Yeah, that was fun.
All right,
it's like,
good.
With art therapy embedded.
Yeah.
Well, she kind of does that anyway.
I do it.
I know. All right, here's some paper and here's this sheet, but draw it, or whatever.
We got to get back in person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.